That's right at the bottom. And it's verified by Lieutenant General N.S. Mchunu.
Yes, I see that.
So they played quite a prominent role in that, and the information note. When did you first have sight of this note? Or is this the first time that you have sight of this note? Or when we made it available to your lawyers, and it's also referenced in the. Sorry, maybe I should have just confirmed this with you also. We did make available to you and your lawyers the Mchunu statement with the annexures that was before Madlanga, and the Masemola statement and annexures. So you would have seen that. So this note, when was the first time you saw this note?
To see this note?
Yeah, that I've just referred you to.
No, I've just seen it.
So you hadn't seen it before?
This very one?
Yeah,
no.
Yes, the one that I've just made reference to. The one that was approved by by the National Commissioner on the 18th of June 2018.
Yes, I see it, and I've seen it before, not in this particular form, and not as a bundle, but just in parts of it, not strictly compiled like this. But I'm aware of the content of this. I've become aware of it before.
And
before I got this one.
Did you see it, or were you made aware of it as part of your orientation as the newly appointed minister?
Yes, as I indicated before, that as I familiarized myself, or got to familiarize myself with issues, I came across many documents on various aspects of subs, either distributed or I got them elsewhere or brought to my attention elsewhere. So I've been aware of this, but not as compiled the way it is compiled, so, but different aspects thereof.
So this information note is very helpful in terms of giving us background why this team was established. You'll see that on page 1.
Yes.
And you'll see in the first paragraph under background that it was established by the President in May 2018. The Interministerial Committee consisting of Ministries of State Security, Justice and Correctional Services and Police. The committee is chaired by the Minister of Police and is tasked with ensuring that the perpetrators of these crimes are brought to book. The IMC met with the task team investigating these cases on 21 May 2018, and one of the preliminary observations was that this multidisciplinary task team was working in silos, and it does not have an investigation and prosecutorial plan or strategy that is aligned to overall government priorities contained in the National Development Plan of 2030, the Medium-Term Strategic Framework, the MTSF, and other key policy prescripts, i.e. creating safe and secure environment. Then the then acting provincial commissioner led the process of developing the strategy, which was tabled, and at the meeting of the IMC, the strategy and its implementation plan were provisionally approved by the National Commission. Then they deal with the current situation on page 2, on page 3, the operational approach and concepts. And then in paragraph 4, on page 4, composition of the operational teams. You'll see there it's quite senior, brigadiers and colonels. They're all senior positions, Minister. The cost at paragraph 5. So this plan is it will commence on the 1st of July 2018 to the 31st of December 2018. So that certainly appears to accord with your understanding. If this is a task team that's appointed for a limited period, and this was in terms of this particular plan, and the cost of deployment of 139 personnel over 6 months is estimated at just under 50 million rand. And the breakdown is provided for on page 5. Then under monitoring and evaluation on page 7, this is spelling out how they will work. And then at the bottom, or towards the bottom of page 7, you see that, Minister?
Yes.
Under recommendations, the implementation plans, plan for the strategy to investigate and prosecute perpetrators of political related cases to be approved, the project to be approved and funded from the national budget on the estimated total amount of 49,138,808 rand to be managed at Provincial Office KwaZulu-Natal. And it's signed off by Lieutenant General Acting Provincial Commissioner KwaZulu-Natal N.S. Mchunu. You see that on the 18th of June. And it is on the following page, you'll also see that it's signed off also by then Deputy National Commissioner of Policing at the time, S.F. Masemola, who's the current National Commissioner, on the 18th of June. And he makes the following comment: cost center, costing different to other national ops, understood that the provincial, ops vehicle budget, something. But anyway, he doesn't disapprove. He supports the recommendation. It's also supported by one of the other deputy national commissioners of crime detection at the time. That's Lieutenant General Shumane, T-S-U-M-A-N-E. It is also approved by the then national head of the Hawks, Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, Lieutenant General Labia, on the 18th of June, and also by one of the other Deputy National Commissioners, Asset and Legal Management, F.N. Vuma, Lieutenant General, on the 18th of June, and then finally signed off on the 18th of June by the then National Commissioner, General Sithole. So my first question was, when did you first see this note? And I think your answer was, you must correct me if I'm wrong, was now when I've read it to you. But you somehow heard it in different forms or formats during this time when you were oriented as minister.
Yes, I'm saying I did come across this information before.
But you didn't see it in this particular format. This note that you've seen in front of you now.
Yeah, I'm saying I have come across this information before, but not necessarily compiled like this, but I've come across this particular note before.
So now from this note, and this is for your comment, it appears to be a case that this was a political initiative made by the president. In his capacity as the president of the country, he's addressing or trying to address an issue of grave concern to him and to all of us, that these political killings in KZN is unacceptable, is out of control, and needs to be addressed. And he forms this interministerial task team. But now this political initiative has to be implemented. So
yes.
Given some meat. And what happens is that there's a presentation by Lieutenant General Mchunu, and it's spearheaded. The project leader is Khumalo, and they make a presentation which is approved, and it must now be implemented and it must be operationalized, if you don't mind that language. And it's budgeted for from the national budget. And it's approved by the head of legal and asset at the, so the task team is put into full operation. Now, who has the control and management of the task team? Is it the interministerial committee or is it the national commissioner? Because this task team is now going to report to Mchunu and Khumalo and ultimately the national commissioner. What is your understanding?
Now, the first understanding that I've had or developed throughout as I familiarized myself with this is that this is what the president envisaged when he made the decision to intervene in the situation in KZN, establish a mechanism, but he himself establishes an interministerial task team. Go and work, but this is what I want to see, so that we combat the problem. Then they go and have a discussion, and they give themselves tasks. And the key things is to establish structures. They establish a structure, two structures below them, managerial, the other one much more operational on the ground, and they do that. So it is multi-tier as it happened. So when you ask me who composed, it's all the people that were seen to be relevant, starting with ministers, relevant ministers, and then the next tier, relevant people and departments, and the province. Hence, you see General Mchunu signing all of that because it's in KwaZulu-Natal. He's provincial commissioner. He lays the platform. He avails the platform where this mechanism will operate, and he needs to support. He needs to be active, and you would see that when you run the other units on illegal mining, for instance, when it happens in Northwest, you go there, the central person there would be the provincial commissioner, even though there are people above him, as is happening, because it's under this poll and so on. So you go there, all of you, but the person who provide the platforms, the provincial commissioner, and is involved. And so even though it's not a provincial kind of an instrument or structure, but because it is in that province, it gets recognized, he gets encouraged to play a role, a conducive role, an enabling role, so that all other players are able to move. And when they move out, they are able to say, we leave a person who's providing a platform actively, and in this instance is General Mkhuna's, and it works like that, and they therefore established it like this.
But Minister, didn't it work like this according to this plan? There was the initiative from the president, the formation of the establishment of the interministerial committee. Importantly, because you don't want to operate in silos anymore. You want to have a coordinated approach. So justice is involved, and the NPA is made available to assist, appoint a prosecutor dedicated to this task. So all of them are dedicated from various, whether it's from the State Security Agency to provide intelligence, defense to provide some or other assistance. All of them are there. That's why they form this team. But the team that now is established by Mkhunazi, led by Khumalo, they must now begin to operate. Surely they operate in accordance with the instructions of either Mkhunazi, Khumalo, or the National Commissioner, who at the time was Sithole. They don't operate according to the instructions of the Interministerial Committee. Well, how do you understand it? Because this is signed off, it's approved, the funding is approved. Or let me start with this question or proposition, that do you accept that this task team that was established certainly for this period from 1 July 2018 to 31 December 2018 conforms to the law? It's a lawfully established task team.
Yes.
In fact, approved by the Interministerial Committee.
Yes.
Of which the police, Minister of Police is
and functioning under their direction.
Let us understand that, because that seems to be your case, isn't it? We're going to get there when we debate the directive. Here we have a plan that's been set out, how it's going to be monitored and evaluated and implemented. But on the ground and how they operate, those instructions are given, as I mentioned, according to this plan by Mkhunazi or Khumalo or by the National Commissioner. Surely not by any of the ministers. Do you accept that?
No, look, when the president intervenes, as he did at that time, he thereafter, once he had directed, as part of his directive, the group of ministers to develop a mechanism, there's no way you can divorce him and say he can now go to London and have a holiday. That was not the case. He had expectations that things would roll out the way he had envisaged. So he becomes and stays part of it, but not operational. But that is his intervention. Then he leaves the interministerial task team. Then they work. Now he's not part of them. He's not minister. He's not with them. he is sitting in his office doing other things. They come and bring reports, but they are working there. Now, you're not going to say they are separate from his command to a point where he has nothing to do with that. Now, what do the interministerial do? They discuss how do we roll out the mechanism as instructed by the president. They then say the best way of doing this, get prosecution, get skills in terms of detectives, get people from outside. They discuss actively. Once they agree.
In fact, Minister, just to interpose, and in fairness to you, the presentation that was initially made by the then acting provincial commissioner of KZN, that did have the effect of persuading the interministerial committee that approach at the time was not the right approach. And it wasn't producing the desired results. So they were instrumental in saying no, and this new multidisciplinary approach should that's fair comment, I think.
Yes. So once the interministerial committee have conceptualized this thing, of course, discussing with everybody at officials level, in other words, officers, they then leave. They say, you do as discussed, this is the resolution and so on. And they start implementing. The people who implement are not necessarily the politicians, but they establish, they direct, they give directives to say, this is how it should happen. And these ones operationalize it, and they become, they bring it into this, they manage it. In other words, it becomes managerial when it gets to implementation, but you can't divorce. As I spoke about 3 tiers, and maybe even 4 tiers if you count the president. And so managerially, they then implement as you see them. So this is at management level. Even them, General Khumalo, General Mkhwanazi, would leave certain people, either groups of them coordinated at a particular level. They wouldn't run around with every task of the task team. They wouldn't, for instance, be involved personally on all the investigations, on all the collective collection, on the arrests and so on. They are managing, but there are those who run the actual errands. That is another tier of people. So that's my understanding.
Now, what did happen, and this is the uncontested evidence that thus far, is that this task team, its life was extended, because the one that I read to you, this terminated on the 31st of December 2018. But we know it continued to operate. We know that from former Minister Pele, who's coming to testify here. We know that from the National Commissioner, Masemola, who at the time was the Deputy National Commissioner. We know that from Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. So it was extended from time to time. And in that period from 2018 up until now, up until November, December 2023, the task team reported to the Interministerial Committee. I think it was twice a year. They had briefings, and then the Minister of Police, who's the sort of chairperson of this Interministerial Committee, would have media briefings to say, this is what the task team is doing. these are so many cases that have been resolved, and so on. And an example of this you'll find, it's also in bundle 3. What pages are they? 20. It's at it's EB3. EB3, starting at page 15, and you'll see, for example, at 18, there's a media briefing, 21 May 2018, 3 August 2018. You see it there, Ms.?
Yes, I see that.
3 August 2018, there's a media briefing, hashtag police ministry, hashtag media alert, police minister, hashtag Becky Kelly, to give an update on progress thus far on political killings in the province of KZN, 3 August at 11:30. Then there's another one on the 13th of September 2018, again where former Minister Kele featuring prominently, March 2018 on page 23. That's 2019, 28 March 2019, then June 2021, and this appears to be the last one, 6 September 23, and certainly the last time that Minister Kele was Minister of Police. And you'll read from, if you're there, Minister, 6 September 2023, media advisory issued by the Police Ministry. The Interministerial Committee looking into political killings in KwaZulu-Natal will on Wednesday, 6 September 2023, update the media on the latest successes of the team tasked with investigating politically related violence in the province. This briefing follows a meeting of the Interministerial Committee consisting of Ministers of State Security, Defence, Justice and Correctional Services, and is chaired by the Minister of Police, General Becky Pele. Members invited to attend. That apparently was the last, and apparently that was the last briefing, and the President was also in attendance at that media briefing. It was apparently at the airport. So that's how it worked. This team was established and it was extended from time to time, from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, until 2023, and more recently, is it this one? It's attached to your statement at it's SM31 at volume 1. SM31 at page 235. This is an information note. It's a request for financial authority for 2024-2025 National Task Team investigating politically related cases in KwaZulu-Natal, and it and on page 238 you'll see it's approved. Request for financial authority is approved for 20 million rand. And there's a note by the National Commissioner, provisional whilst the finalization of allocation for, what is that word? For is processed, task team, something beyond elections, so long as there is work to be done, cannot be localized. Anyway, so it is an approval, we know, until I think 26 March or 31 March 2025. Sorry. Yeah. So that request was approved by the National Commissioner, and you'll see there's comments at page 237 by the Lieutenant General, Divisional Commissioner, Financial Management and Administration, Lieutenant General Dempani, on the 12th of April 24. So yes, you'll see on page 237 at the top that it's recommended by the project manager, Lieutenant General Kumalo. He says that the estimated budget is for 94 million. Somewhat be approved and funded. Alternatively, he says, whilst the final budget allocation is being considered for 2024-25, a 2 months portion, 15,810,000, be approved. And it is supported by Lieutenant General, Deputy National Commissioner, Crime Detection, Sabia, on the 26th of March. And there's some comments also by Lieutenant General Dempani, and then eventually the National Commission approves it on the 16th of April for 20 million rand. So up until as we speak, the approvals had been given for this task team to stay in operation until next year. Approvals are given in the same way it has been since 2018, 2019. So do you accept the lawfulness of the establishment of this task team?
Yes, the lawful establishment, yes, I accept. But I need to explain one thing. What you have just referred to.
I know, to be fair, I know you're not a lawyer, and these things may be open to interpretation. So just be careful when you agree with me, or I don't want to put words in your mouth. But this team was established and maintained above board from 2018 through now to maybe the next cycle, next year, March 26, and we'll see whether its life is further extended. But the monies were approved, presumably in terms of the PFMA, everything seems to be above board.
Firstly, you would see in the note that you've just presented as part of the process, that there was a note that said that the needs after the allocation that was processed of 20 million, there needs to be a work study. I'm sure you see that. from the CFO. Was there's a difference between an approval for funding and an approval for extension, in terms of, because if you start right from July, it's clear that it was for 6 months. The task team was established for 6 months, after which there was a review or an evaluation to say, this is how we've performed in the last 6 months. And there is a need then to extend, which would be approved by National Commissioner and the Minister. And these extensions were done up to 2022. That is the second part, the second aspect. So the approvals for funding are one thing. The approval for the extension and further existence is a different matter. That is my determination, or that's what I've come to understand.
Sorry, Minister, I'm just being...
That's why Senior Counsel, you'd see in 2019.
No, I'm just looking at because I couldn't make out the handwritten note from Lieutenant General Dimpani, the CFO, isn't it? The CFO.
Yes.
At page 67, also to volume 1, there where this note also appears.
Yes.
Lieutenant General, Divisional Commissioner of Financial Management Administration, Dimpani, approved a significantly reduced budget compared to that initially requested for the financial year, and in so doing stated the following: considering the 11% reduction on the operational budget of the organization, the following are recommended: an amount of 20 million to be approved for the 2024-25 financial year. Post-elections, the task team be deactivated as it has been in existence for the last 5 years. Which component to be tasked to urgently conduct work study investigation for the establishment of a permanent structure in KZN. But it appears that recommendation by Lieutenant General Dimpani was never accepted by the National Commissioner. Because the National Commissioner, as you see from page 238, then approves funding for 20 million.
That is one matter, but I am arguing before the ad hoc committee that there was an extension. There were extensions 6 months after the establishment, 12 months after the establishment, and it continued up to 2022, with the National Commissioner approving, with the Minister approving up to 2022, signing and getting presentations in terms of assessing the further need for the task team. When you see the CFO saying, I will not approve 94 million, there's a problem, and then recommends disestablishment and a work study, that is what would have met the prescripts of the PFMA. That you go for a work study beyond a particular period. You go for a work study, you produce results, you make a presentation, and then so that you approve the budget. It's not budget for approval without a proper assessment of the need presented, among others, to the minister, so that you continue in the form that it had been intended to. But I know what happened, how the gap got brought in. When General Stoller left in 2022, which was the last time that the approval of 2022, or the approval that I'm talking about, came, which had been the practice before, there was no proper handover between the then National Commissioner and the new National Commissioner, which is General Masemola. There was a gap. I know that the gap was caused by the fact that when General Stoller left, he was then required to hand over to the minister because the general was not there, had not been appointed. And General Stoller had an objection saying that he has to hand over to another national commissioner, can't hand over to the minister. And then there was a break, there was a gap. After that, what has been happening is the approval of finances, not, in other words, approval for funding, which is different from further approval for the existence of the political killings task team as per its objective, where you sit and assess the need as per the original objective. But the second point is that as early as 2019, the specialized units had been established. And the reason why there was an extended need for the existence of the task team beyond 2019, it was because the task teams, the specialized units that had been envisaged to replace the task team were still in formation. In other words, they were still being established. Now, the view or the vision was that once we will have all these specialized task teams fully functional, you would then cease to have the political killings task team, which itself was a kind of a silo, because it pulled different people from elsewhere, put them together elsewhere, and they were dealing with one province in isolation of other provinces where otherwise matters were taking place. Now, you then needed to approve every year so that you justify the existence of the political task team, which would then form the basis of your approval for funding. That's where my argument is. I differentiate between the approval for funding and an approval for the further existence of the political task team. So what we are talking about was the approval for funding without a necessary assessment for further existence in line with the original objectives of the task team. And I'm adding another one. I'm adding that you now had a different scenario where you had units, specialized units, but which were still in formation. Now, by the time General Masemola approves, as he has done this year, he is doing that over and above the study that got approved in 2019, which has the political killings task team already as a subunit and other specialized task team, including taxi violence and so on. And this is a structure that we approved in November last year because we looked at that work study of 2019, which had been approved and signed off. And we say here, you have what is ideal. Now, remember, by the time we approve the structure, we have the imperatives of the 7th administration, which among others say, you need to make people of South Africa, all of them, feel safe, not some people somewhere, not a certain grouping of people called public representatives or councillors or those who are political. You now have a new direction, a new political imperative that say protect all the people of South Africa, make them feel safe. And in fact, it is in line with the Constitution of the Republic. The Constitution of the Republic doesn't allow you to protect some and not others. It doesn't. So when we looked at that, that is when I wrote the directive. I took into consideration, I'm still going to go to the reasons, but I'm just picking up that you had to, you can't freeze people. You now have a new structure that caters for the needs, for the need of the, or further need of the political killings task team. You are establishing those specialized units, and you have actually gone to establish others, and that you are on your way going forward. But then you still approve the existence. Now, what are you finding? You are going to find that those people who are in the murder and robbery unit that was approved in 2019, approved again when we did the structure in 2024, they are going to sit and not do their work because the political killings task team is there, and or it's them who are not going to do work. That's what you're finding in Gauteng, for instance. They have these units in terms of the new structure. Serious and violent crimes, and you have organized crime. And if you establish a political killings task team in Gauteng, it means you are putting them over and above organized crime unit, over and above organized crime, serious and violent crimes unit. There are two units that are now existing. Then you put, so what you are going to do with your fund, you are going to pull people into the political killings task team, and those who remain in these two units, they are not going to do anything. But you are going to be piling people with an undefined kind of situation, and you're not going to be effective on the ground. There's just no way you are going to be effective on the ground, because you are piling people for the same task. Now, I'm then explaining two processes that are separate. You create the political killings task team for a particular objective. You assess it in 6 months. You then sign to extend it up to 2022. And you don't do it after 2022. But all you do, you approve funding for that. And from where I sit, you don't meet the prescripts of the PFMA. And therefore, if you're called by SCOP, if I'm called by SCOP to say, how do you justify what you were funding beyond 2022, we will not have an answer. Because what the motivations that you were getting, they were motivations for money. They were not motivations based on proper assessment for the need to, because if you did the need for further existence, you would have found that the structure has since been reviewed in the form of specialized units, which was not there when the task team was established in 2018. That's my argument.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Honorable Chair, shall we take the lunch adjournment at this point? And we can debate this issue further.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, and thank you, Minister.
Nothing. Sure, I would honestly.